Well, hello. Welcome to the Bryant Report. I'm your host, Mike Bryant, and we've got another video for you today. This time we're going to dive into the ballistics report, and prepared by the TBI's expert, Dr. Warren, and we're also going to look at the video shooting reenactment that the TBI put together. So that's what we got in store for you. Today is Friday. We've made it to the end of another week. So hopefully you guys have something fun planned for the weekend. I know I've got tickets to go to the rodeo tomorrow in Houston. I'm going to see Dwight Yoakam in concert. And I haven't been to a concert probably since I was in high school, so this should be interesting. I don't know if any of you guys are country music fans or not, but it should be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll go ahead and, with all that being said, we'll go ahead and dive right into this video. I'll try to keep this one shorter than the last one. I think the last one, like I said, I was using this new software. It's OBS. And I've been trying to master OBS for months, if not years. I just never could figure it out for some reason, but I played around with this more. I got it to work, which is good news because, like I say, making the videos the other way I was doing it, I was paying for a subscription service, and it worked well. It was easy to use, but doing it this way, I can save that money, and not have to shell that out every month. So, but the last video I was still clicking around trying to get familiarized. So hopefully this one will go a lot smoother. But let me know in the comments what you think, and without further ado, we will dive right in. So I think we'll start by looking at the report that their ballistics expert, Dr. Warren, put together. And now, Dr. Warren, he used to work for the TBI for several years. I believe he's got his own company that he's, consulting on and everything. He's published a lot of peer-reviewed reports, so he's got the credentials for sure. I can't discount him there. And obviously he was consulted on this case, and he compiled a report. And see if I can bring it up here, and we'll get it set up. Just bear with me for a moment here, folks. Like I say, I'm still getting used to this, but I think I've got it mastered somewhat. All right, so we'll go ahead and pull this up here. All right, so this is the report, and if you've got a copy of the TBI report, I'll let you know this is IR 256, and this was put together in, let's see, July 30th, 2024. Dr. Eric Warren, PhD, ballistic forensic consultant. Alright, so let's scroll down, and this SCP, I believe that's his company. Let's see here. Okay, I want to make it bigger. Alright, okay, so now this was the official forensic incident reconstruction report, and it was, like I said, he put this together July 30th, 2024. And all right, so let's dive right into it. It says here, the following conclusions were reached after review of the following discovery items. TBI investigative reports, crime scene photographs, medical examiner notes, autopsy report and photographs, TBI laboratory memoranda, Kansas Bureau of Investigation forensic laboratory report, and then statements made by TBI Agent Warren Jones, Chief Deputy Jim Moffitt, Sheriff Buford Pusser, and Mr. Dennis Hathcock. And then, of course, they used the 3D scans that they did of that 1967 Plymouth Fury, and then they did their whole computerized modeling, which I wasn't very impressed with. I mean, the graphics looked like something from a Sega. I think a Sega Genesis might have had better graphics, than what we got. But already, red flag for me is Dennis Hathcock. That's part of what this guy relied on. And when they're talking about Chief Deputy Jim Moffitt, they're talking about that 1976 statement, for lack of a better term. So I covered that in the last video, how there's a lot of problems with that, and it's just factually incorrect. But hey, that's what Dr. Warren, that's part of what went into this. So we already know right off the bat we're going to be in for some chicanery. But we're moving on down here. It says, in reviewing the items above, it is clear that the physical evidence is inconsistent with the version of events as stated by Mr. Pusser. Mr. Pusser stated that he slowed down when he got to the New Hope Road Bridge, and a blue Cadillac approached the driver's side, firing 4 to 6 shots, with 1 to 3 of those shots striking his car, including one that hit his wife, Mrs. Pauline Pusser, in the head. He further stated that when he departed this scene, he stopped approximately 2 miles down the road when the Cadillac pulled up beside him, again with enough space between them that another car could have passed in between them, and fired several additional shots as he was facing Mrs. Pusser. During the second volley, Mrs. Pusser was struck in the same spot, and he was struck on his chin. Continuing on, Mr. Lester Burns only collected 2 cartridge cases from the first scene, not 4 to 6 as described by Mr. Pusser, with the remaining 15 recovered by Mr. Bill Fullwood. Now let's stop right there and let's talk about that. Now he's bringing up, okay, Mr. Lester Burns only collected 2 cartridge cases from the first scene, not 4 to 6 as described by Mr. Pusser. All right, well, let's go back up, and right here, let's see, Mr. Pusser stated that he slowed down when he got to the New Hope Road Bridge, and a blue Cadillac approached the driver's side, firing 4 to 6 shots, with 1 to 3 of those shots striking his car. All right, well, 1 to 3 of those shots striking his car, including one that hit his wife, Mrs. Pauline Pusser, in the head. Now, but then down here he says he said he was expecting to find 4 to 6 as described as by Mr. Pusser. Okay. Well, let's talk about that for a second. So you've got somebody firing into the car, and possibly somewhere between 4 and 6 shots. Now, I don't know how many of you have fired a semi-automatic or automatic rifle, but you will know that the brass, when it gets ejected, I mean, it can go anywhere. I know when I was in the Navy and we would go to the gun range and we would shoot M16s, we would shoot M14s, we would shoot sometimes AR-15s, and the brass, when it ejects, it sometimes it even would end up going down my collar, and I don't like, there's a lot of people who probably might be familiar with, getting those brass burns on your neck. And also keep in mind that the shooter was inside of a car, and and we don't know what the position was of of him. We don't know his anatomical position inside the car when he's shooting it. Is he leaned all the way out the window? Is he sitting back like this? Somewhere in between? We don't know. I mean, and anybody that's fired a rifle on full automatic knows that rifle barrel. I fired M16s full auto, and that rifle barrel has a tendency to ride up on you. Ride up, and when you ride up like that, you're going to kind of go back. So if this guy was shooting on full auto, I don't know. Don't know if he was. He might have had an M2, he might have had an M1. They think it was an M1, but according to Buford Pusser, he said it sounded like machine gun fire. So, but be that as it may, like I said, those casings eject out. They can go anywhere. They could have been inside the car, and he's not accounting for that possibility. He's basically boiling it down to, well, they only found 2 cartridge cases. So therefore that means Buford's lying. Well, no, not necessarily. Like I said, those casings could have been in the car. And remember, the crime scene was contaminated. Okay, you had Lester Burns coming to the scene and picking up shell casings. You had Bill Fullwood coming to the scene and picking up shell casings. So how do we know that those folks didn't, in the process of walking around trying to pick up these casings, they didn't kick one accidentally, and kick it off into the grass, or who knows if it was by the bridge. I don't know if there was like a culvert or something down there, or maybe it went in between some of the boards. So we don't know. But just because the bottom line is, just because you only found 2 cartridge casings doesn't automatically disprove Buford's statement. And he should know that as a ballistics expert. He should know that. Now I don't know if he's one of these ballistics experts that's never actually fired a gun before. I mean, I would hope he has, but if he has, he would know. And so this statement right here already is kind of disingenuous, And remember, he used to work for the TBI. I'm sure he's familiar with these people. He's probably worked with these people. So, so there's could be a possible bias there. But we'll continue on with what he's talking about here. So Mr. Lester Burns only collected 2 cartridge cases from the first scene, not 4 to 6 as described by Mr. Pusser, with remaining 15 recovered by Mr. Bill Fullwood. Now, he brings up Bill Fullwood, which is interesting, because later on we're going to see that he uses Sammy Fullwood's statement. That's listed as one of the things that he references. And if he's using that as a reference, then it's curious that he would say that Mr. Bill Fullwood recovered the 15 casings. Why wouldn't he have said Sammy? So I don't know. That's a lot of weird things here, but we'll keep on moving. Furthermore, Dr. Peeler described gunpowder residue on Mrs. Pusser's chin. Testing of the same vintage 30 carbon rifle and Lake City ammunition on artificial skin simulant revealed that gunpowder was not deposited beyond approximately 4 feet. This suggests the shot to Mrs. Pusser's head was not fired from a car on the opposite side of the road and was likely fired by someone immediately next to the driver's side of Mr. Pusser's vehicle. Well, let's talk about the gunpowder residue, and that was something that was actually noted, was put down in the notes, the crime scene notes by Warren Jones, and then Dr. Peeler added it in to his his medical examiner's report of Pauline. Now, we don't know. I don't believe. I believe he was. It was like a black powder mark or something. That's how it was noted. Now we don't know. They didn't test it back then, so we don't know that it was gunpowder residue. So he's making an assumption. He's assuming that it would be gunpowder residue. What it actually was, we don't know. But there was no testing to say that it was gunshot or gunpowder residue. So that was kind of just something that Warren Jones saw as he was taking his notes. Could have been any number of things that could account for that. But anyway, we'll continue on. It says here, additionally, there were signs of the scene being staged because auto glass was found in the street at the first scene and described as being poured out in a neat pile. At the second scene, most of the 15 cartridge cases were described as being recovered on the far east side of the road in a single pile, with some moving off in a northwestern direction. All right, so let's go back to this. Let's talk about the auto glass. Now, the auto glass piles. Now that's something that was brought up by Dennis Hathcock and Sammy Fullwood. Now, I think I've already shown that Sammy Fullwood was not the one that collected the shell casings. He wasn't. It was his dad. And furthermore, Sammy Fullwood, he said that he picked up those shell casings. He says it was the second ambush site, but he describes it being by the bridge. So clearly the first ambush site. And he said that there was these piles of glass, but he also says that the shell casings, when he talked about the shell casings, that they had been run over and there was tire marks, because people had been driving through. But so somehow people had driven through and ran over shell casings, but somehow missed these piles of glass that was in the road. That's kind of curious. That's kind of odd. And furthermore, like, are they suggesting? And well, I believe they are suggesting. There's no believing to it. They are suggesting that Buford staged the piles of glass. Now, someone please explain to me in the comments how that even works. So are you telling me that he shoots Pauline outside the vehicle, puts her inside the vehicle, then he gets out the M1 carbine, shoots up the car. He shoots himself in the mouth. Then he gets out there with a flashlight, because remember, this is nighttime. This is nighttime on a dark road, no street lights, and it's a gravel road. It's not a paved road, it's a gravel road. And he's out here in the gravel on his hands and knees, mouth bleeding, picking up glass shards, putting them in a cup. Or did he bring a shop vac? Did Buford bring a shop vac with him out to New Hope Road? And then even if, let's just say he could somehow collect up glass that's intermingled amongst gravel, he collects up the glass, and if he's trying to stage a crime scene, so what? So then he pours it in a pile? Does that make sense? I mean, if your theory is that he's staging all this, well, why would he put all the glass in one pile? That makes absolutely no sense. So I don't put any credence into that at all. Dennis talks about the glass too, but oddly enough, Warren Jones, he makes no notation of that. There's no photographs of it. I mean, they got photographs of Pauline's scalp in the ditch. Why wouldn't they have photographs of the glass in the road? I don't know. But so yeah, it's that's that. I like I said, they're getting that again, they're getting that information from somebody that's a known, proven liar. Okay, so, and I said yesterday, or in the last video, we used the term in troubleshooting in electronics when I was in the Navy: garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you're putting the wrong, incorrect data in, you're not going to be able to rely on the data that you're getting out. But let's continue on. At the second scene, most of the 15 cartridge cases were described as being recovered on the far east side of the road in a single pile, with some moving off in a northwestern direction. Now, they got that statement from Dennis Hathcock. So ask yourself this: how is it? And this is a question for anybody out there, whether you're pro Buford or anti Buford. Ask yourself this: if Bill Fullwood, or even Sammy Fullwood, if you believe Sammy, whatever, but according to Warren Jones, Bill Fullwood collected up those. He was out there right around the time he got there before anybody. He picked up the shell casings, and then he took his pocket knife and he marked them, and then he turned them over to Warren Jones. So how is it possible that Dennis Hathcock would see these 15 cartridge cases at all? So we've got incorrect information already. This is what's forming your expert, your ballistic expert's opinion. This is what's informing him on this. He goes on to say, this cartridge case placement would not have occurred if they were fired from a vehicle, whether stationary or moving. I mean, I would agree with that if we could rely on the placement of the cartridge cases. You can't rely on it. The crime scene was tainted. The evidence was tainted. Not only did they collect up the shell casings, but you got people marking them up with pocket knives. So everything is corrupted on this crime scene, but your expert is willing to rely on unreliable witnesses. So let's move on. And then they've got some diagrams here, or some pictures here, and what they did, I guess, is they fired the M1 carbine into the wall, I guess, at different distances to show the gunshot residue, what it would look like at the different distances. And so that's what you got going on there, which I've got no problems with that. Then we move on. The cartridge cases and bullets from the scenes were examined by Agent Robert C. Goodwin and determined to share class characteristics with Mr. Pusser's firearm. Later, Mr. Pusser brought his .30 carbine firearm, and 10 test fire cartridge cases were compared to the cartridge cases from the scene, with the Agent Goodwin determining that the evidence had not been fired at Mr. Pusser's firearm. Well, there you go. Case closed on that one, as far as I'm concerned. Then then he's got something. Then he goes on to say, however, there was no documented attempt to authenticate the provenance of the firearm, the ownership of it. This would be important because he did not voluntarily bring this firearm in until he heard rumors that he might have been involved in his wife's death. Well, first of all, there was a period of time where he was in the hospital, okay, recovering from his injuries. And then there was a period of time where he was traveling around with Warren Jones and Agent Sloan, interviewing potential suspects and things of that nature. And think about that. If you're the victim, why would you even be thinking about that? You're probably concentrating on helping out the investigation and trying to find who did it. You wouldn't be thinking, well, gee, I better clear my name, and as far as him not voluntarily bringing the firearm in, well, that's ridiculous. He did voluntarily bring the firearm in. Once he heard the rumors circulating, it probably pissed him off, which it would piss. Think about it. if you were shot and your wife was shot and killed, I mean, you'd be pretty pissed off if you got people circulating rumors. But I mean, it's not like he, held out the firearm for several years and then brought it in, or they had to get a court order. No, he was recovering from his injuries, then he was helping the investigators, then he hears the rumors, then he brings the firearm in, and it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it was cleared. So I mean, however long it took him, it's irrelevant because the firearm was ruled out. So it was a nothing burger. Then continuing on here, thus, while it is possible that the firearm Mr. Pusser provided for testing and comparison did not fire the evidence cartridge cases, it does not preclude him from having another .30 carbine firearm in his possession that was responsible for firing those items. Well, prove it. Prove it. Show me the evidence. I mean, it's almost like he's saying that the absence of evidence is evidence of his guilt. It seems like that's what he's saying, that the absence of the evidence makes him guilty. I mean, if the investigators felt like he could have had another one, well, they could have easily got a search warrant, searched his car, searched his home, searched his office. All that could have been done, but it wasn't. So we'll never know. I mean, it's interesting. It's hey, we can sit there and speculate and play what ifs all day. We can what if anything to death. But I'm sticking to what we can prove. Continuing on, Mr. Pusser also stated that during the second volley of shots, he had his door open and one leg outside the vehicle with his foot on the ground. He stated that he was turned facing towards Mrs. Pusser and his back to the shooters and her facing him. If this had happened, his chin could not have been shot because it would not have been in a position to be hit by gunfire coming from behind him. Similarly, his large stature would be blocking Mrs. Pusser from being shot again if the events transpired the way he described. Not only would he be blocking her, but his torso would be a much larger target and more likely to be struck rather than Mrs. Pusser's head, and that did not occur. Okay, well, back to this. If this had happened, his chin could not have been shot because it would not have been in a position to be hit by gunfire. Well, that's not necessary. That's assuming that he would be sitting there like a statue, not moving. Try right now to just sit still and not move. You're going to have a little bit of movement back and forth, and so this is just a totally ludicrous statement. I mean, you're assuming that when she gets shot, he just sits there, doesn't move, and then that way he just keeps his head turned away. I mean, and I don't even believe he says that. But that's, again, he's making an assumption. He's making an assumption here. And then we've got this picture here. This is a still image of a three-dimensional reconstruction of the second site. An exemplar Plymouth Fury 1 was imaged and the bullet defects visually mapped onto the vehicle. Two mannequins representing Mr. and Mrs. Pusser were then sized to the correct height. So this is a computer-generated photo that they came up with. But even this, you'll see in the video reenactment that they did that this, whatever this rendering is definitely not accurate at all. But we'll get back to that. Okay. Analysis. Continuing on here. Analysis of the trajectories associated with this shooting event was not performed. Now, there's been a lot of there's been a lot of talk about trajectories, bullet trajectories here lately. I've seen Mike Elam do some videos talking about bullet trajectories and that. But right here, your own expert. Analysis of the trajectories associated with this shooting event was not performed. And so, however, there was a description of at least 10 bullet defects in the vehicle. All were noted as traveling from the driver's side to the passenger side, with 5 entering the body panel just behind the rear passenger window, the interior of the vehicle at the C-pillar, 1 perforating the windshield, 2 penetrating the dash, and 2 entering near the top of the driver's door. Well, he's already, this right here is already incorrect, which is all, it's already making me wonder if this guy even looked at the photos, read the report. But it says 5 entering the body panel just behind the rear passenger window. The rear passenger window. The body panel. So shooting through the body panel. There's no evidence of that. There's no photos of that. What they were saying was that the shots went in, because you had, Buford's driver's side window, and then there was the window right behind there. That's what they're talking about. But he's saying, now remember, this is their ballistics expert. Supposedly he looked at all this. He's saying that they went through the body panel, the metal, not the glass, the metal. They went through the metal. So keep that. This is your this is your expert, your ballistics expert, and he's not even familiar with the evidence that he's given an analysis on. But yeah, back at the top, analysis of the trajectories associated with this shooting event was not performed. So anybody out there talking about bullet trajectory evidence, it's not supported by the TBI report. So keep that in mind. So when you see Facebook posts, when you see other YouTubers doing videos and they're talking about bullet trajectories, well, if they are talking about it, they're coming up with their own. But right here, the TBI did no analysis of the trajectories associated with this shooting. Case closed. Let's see. So 1 perforating the windshield, 2 penetrating the dash, and 2 entering near the top of the driver's door, the B pillar. Okay. Without further examination of the vehicle, a comprehensive trajectory analysis cannot be performed. So in other words, we don't have the vehicle. He couldn't examine the vehicle. Don't exist anymore. So trajectory analysis cannot be performed. But the photographs with the description of the defects can be used to approximate. So these are right there. These are all approximates. Approximate some of these trajectories in this case. Moving to the exterior of the vehicle, there was, let's see here, there was a significant bloodletting event that occurred near the hood of the passenger's side. The pattern formed by these bloodstains is inconsistent with Mr. Pusser walking around the car and leaning onto it to steady himself after being shot. Well, I just did a couple of videos ago, where we talked about this. So he's given his opinion, and remember, he's not the blood spatter expert. He's not the blood pattern analysis expert. That's Dr. Corey. That's Mr. Corey Latham. I don't know. I can't remember if he's a doctor or not. He might be a doctor, but anyway, Corey Latham was the one that did the blood pattern analysis, and he did not say that it was inconsistent. He actually said it was possible. And remember, the blood stain pattern analysis could only be done through these low quality black and white photographs. And that's what Corey Latham said, and just so going by that, and given the fact that we don't know whose blood it was, it could have possibly very well have been Mr. Pusser's blood. He doesn't rule it out. He doesn't say it's inconsistent. He actually says it's consistent. So I don't know. Again, I don't know. These experts are not. They're not reading, or maybe they can't read. Maybe they have poor reading comprehension skills. But this is just not the correct analysis. This pattern was deposited by someone outside of the car and had to have dried before Mr. Pusser drove the vehicle. Otherwise, the pattern would exhibit an additional flow pattern from the airflow similar to the bloodstain patterns on the exterior passenger's door and the passenger side of the back seat. Like I said, I talked about it in that video, a couple of videos ago when we talked about the blood. And again, this is nothing new. I don't know. I think he's kind of putting his own spin on it. And he goes on to say, in other words, the stain on the hood is not consistent with the vehicle being stationary or moving slowly at the time they were deposited, but then accelerating prior to the stains becoming fixed or dry. This is inconsistent with Mr. Pusser's statement that after the shooting, he went to the trunk to get a rifle, and while fumbling for the keys, he realized he didn't have the firearm in the trunk, yet no blood was described on the trunk area. Well, again, all of this was talked about by Corey Latham, and he said it was consistent. He said it was definitely possible that it was Buford's blood, and that he walked, it was from him walking around the hood. Now this part here about the trunk, Buford never said that he was at the trunk. He said he was fumbling for the keys, or he was looking for the keys, and he realized the keys were in the car, and he goes back. But he never says he's at the trunk. So, but of course there was blood on the bumper, the rear bumper. That much we know. So even if you want to go that route, there was blood on the rear bumper, and you could be at the trunk fumbling for keys, and you just bleed on the rear bumper. You never touched the trunk. So, but again, this is something. He's giving his opinion on something that he's probably not qualified to do, and you already paid another expert to give that opinion. So, let's see. Moving on. Furthermore, he then got into a ditch and called for Mrs. Pusser, then returned to the vehicle, took off after the Cadillac. If that had occurred in the time frame of a couple minutes, as he described, it would be expected to see a flow pattern on the hood, which was not documented or observed. He got to the ditch, called him, then returned to the vehicle, took off. I'm not sure what he's coming up with here on the hood, which was not documented. Oh, I guess he's saying that. I guess he's trying to say, what he's trying to say is, okay, let's think about this for a second. Let's put our detective hats on here for a second. So it says, furthermore, he then got into a ditch, called for Mrs. Pusser, then returned to the vehicle and took off after the Cadillac. If that had occurred in the time frame of a couple minutes, as he described, it would be expected to see a flow pattern on the hood, which was not documented or observed. Well, there's one thing that they're leaving out here. One thing you're leaving out is that, when you've got the engine running, because keep in mind, the engine's running in this car, which is going to heat up the hood, right? I mean, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But you've got the hood of the car heated up already, and this was also in August, so summertime, even at night is probably warm already, and then you've got a heated hood. So, and plus we don't know the condition of the hood. Was it dirty? Was it washed? Was it waxed? Was it not? I don't know. Well, there's a lot of variables in there, and he's making, again, this is just an assumption of his. I don't know. That's a good experiment. Maybe I'll go run that. Maybe I'll go run my car for a while, and then check out the temperatures on the hood. That's something some of you guys, that's some detective work that could be done. But so moving on, But either way, we already, like I said, we already had Corey Latham talk about all this, and he basically didn't say any of this. So now we're going to get to the conclusion. All right. So in conclusion, the physical evidence in this case does not support the version of events as recounted by Pusser during this investigation. Well, let's highlight that. The physical evidence in this case does not support the version of events recounted by Mr. Pusser during this investigation. Well, what physical evidence? That's my question. What physical evidence? Let me know. What physical evidence? No murder weapon, no car, no blood samples, no shell casings, no projectiles. So what physical evidence is the man talking about? I mean, I guess he could be talking about the photographs, I guess. I guess we could give him that one. But there was no physical evidence. It was all lost by the TBI. Let's see here. The locations and suspicious arrangements of the glass and cartridge cases are inconsistent with what Mr. Pusser claimed occurred as well, indicative of a staged crime scene. Well, again, what's more suspicious is Dennis Hathcock's and Sammy Fullwood's account of the locations and suspicious arrangements of the glass and cartridge cases are inconsistent. So again, he's getting this from two people that I've shown on this channel to, not being reliable witnesses. Okay, I've shown time and time again holes in Dennis's story. I showed evidence of Mr. Sammy Fullwood not telling the truth. So he's relying on inaccurate information. The location of the shooter and location of the cartridge cases are inconsistent with the version of events provided by Mr. Pusser. Well, location of the shooter and location of the cartridge cases are inconsistent. Well, again, the location of the cartridge cases, we beat that horse to death. That was not documented by the investigators. And then the location of the shooter, well, you don't really know the location. I mean, you know an approximation, but we don't know exactly. The bullet trajectories. Now look at this. The bullet trajectories are inconsistent with the body positioning described by Mr. Pusser. Now wait a minute. The bullet trajectories are inconsistent with the body positioning described by Mr. Now wait a minute. Let's go back up. What do we got here? Let's zoom this in, shall we? Right up here. Let's write. So right here, analysis of the trajectories associated with this shooting event was not performed. And then he goes on, without further examination of the vehicle, a comprehensive trajectory analysis cannot be performed. Okay, so then let's go back down, and he's talking about the bullet trajectories are inconsistent with the body position. Well, he just got through telling us that there was no bullet trajectory analysis performed. So how could the bullet trajectories be inconsistent with the body positioning described by Mr. Pusser? I mean, I don't know. Help me out. Somebody help me. Give me a, what's that show? The Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The Lifelines. Can I use one of my lifelines to call an expert to help me out here? Because this makes no sense. It makes no sense. Furthermore, let's continue on. The bloodstain pattern on the hood of Mr. Pusser's vehicle conflicts with the timing of events described by Mr. Pusser from a holistic perspective. limited. Well, again, Corey Latham touched on that and disagreed. But then here's something that I like. Let me zoom this in a little bit bigger. The limited universe of evidence. The limited universe of evidence. So he's even acknowledging that there's very scant evidence to even examine. Suggests the shooting scenes were at least altered, and likely that Mr. Pusser was involved in her murder. Well, I believe we've pretty much beat this one up and shown that right off the rip, he's relying on unreliable witnesses, and those unreliable witnesses are they're the source of the shell casings, where they were located. They're the source of these glass piles. So in my opinion, you can just throw that out. Any analysis based off of that, ridiculous, because those two, I've shown that they're liars. And you know, now and then we already talked about the blood stain pattern analysis was done by Corey Latham, and I showed you. I pulled that report up and I showed you that where he says that it's definitely consistent. He's very vague, and because he admits he based his analysis solely off the low quality black and white photos that he had, and without the benefit of having been there at the crime scene to see it. You know, he cannot rule out, he can't disprove Pusser's story. He said it could be consistent. It's possible. He gives all kinds of different different patterns and different ways that those patterns could have happened, and it lines up with Buford's story. I showed that. But so yeah, this report, I'm not impressed at all with this Dr. Eric Warren. But just to show you the references that this guy used, but like number 6 and 7, TBI investigative reports 70, TBI investigative reports 35 and 37. Well, these two right here are from Sammy Fullwood and Dennis Hathcock, and we've already talked about that. And we already know that he used the original case file from the TBI from back in 1967, agent's note on evidence collection. But again, he didn't even, if he did read the original report, he would know that it was Bill Fullwood and not Sammy Fullwood that picked up the shell casings, and he would also know that the bullets did not go through the metal body of the car. It went through the window. So I don't know. And he also used Corey Latham's report, but obviously he didn't read it. He didn't either, he read it or he just disregarded it. But that is your ballistics report from your ballistics expert, Dr. Eric Warren. And I don't know about you all, but I'm not very impressed with it. But that's that, as they say. And so let me go ahead and take that down. And so the next thing we're going to look at is, let me see here. Oh, well, actually, let's before I do that, let's watch the TBI video that they did. It's about a 9-minute video, and I guess I'm going to go over an hour on this episode too. I apologize, folks. But I think it's worthwhile to take our time here and examine this kind of stuff, because that's what they're relying on. Let's see here if we can get this just right. Okay, now hopefully the audio comes out better this time around than last time around. I boosted the audio. I figured out how to do that, but let's bring this up. All right, so this is the shooting, the ambush reenactment that was done by the TBI. Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. Okay, all right, I think that's better. All right, let me one more time here. Sorry, folks, for the technical difficulties here. All right, so this is, like I said, this is the TBI got together and they went and got that 2012 Cadillac STS, I think it was, and then they put the gel dummies in and they took off some shots. And so we'll go ahead and take a look at it. All right, let's see here. Oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and read this. The following reconstruction was developed to help visualize and assess the possible origin of the reported gunshots in this incident. It is based on original statements from the 67 case and does not contain actual footage of the events. While every effort has been made to accurately reflect the information available in the original case file, some details may be subject to interpretation. So they're already letting you know right off the bat that, you know, they're pretty much guessing. This is their interpretation. Whether they can prove it or not, whether or not it's supported by evidence, this is their interpretation. So we'll get back to it here.
Due to the limitations of not having the exact vehicle from 1967 and the exact anatomical positions of Buford and Pauline inside the vehicle, this testing cannot achieve absolute accuracy. However, this testing was conducted in the safest and most accurate manner possible, consistent with the scientific method. All opinions expressed in this video are solely those of the on-site medical and ballistic experts and do not represent the views of any agency, organization, or affiliated entity.
So right off the bat, again, they're letting you know that they didn't use the actual 1967 Plymouth Fury or another Plymouth. They could have used a different Plymouth Fury. It didn't have to be that one. No human bodies were shot. And then, of course, he says that it doesn't represent the views of any agency. That's a weird statement, because aren't you the agency that's using this as evidence against somebody? I don't know. So are they saying that they agree with it or they don't agree? But let's continue.
To assist TBI agents with conducting this ballistic testing, a medical expert and ballistic expert were on site and involved with the planning and facilitation of this testing.
Hello, I'm Assistant Special Agent in Charge Mike Parson with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Hey, it's our favorite TBI agent, Mike Parson. Let's see what he's got to say.
West Criminal Investigation Division here in Jackson, Tennessee. The following videos you're about to see are going to illustrate ballistic testing that we're conducting in relation to TBI case number 5-644, the events of the tragic day of August 12, 1967, involving McNairy County Sheriff Buford Pusser and the murder of his wife, Pauline Pusser.
The ballistic testing was conducted using ballistic gel dummy heads, an actual M1 30 caliber carbine, and a .357 Magnum Python revolver, similar to what Buford Pusser was carrying on the date of this incident.
Now you see, that's kind of clever. That's kind of clever because they put that in there to suggest that Buford was carrying the M30 or the M1 carbine and the .357. So it's kind of a clever little wordsmithing, but we'll continue.
All of which was documented in the TBI case file by TBI Special Agents Warren Jones and John Sloan. In shot one, we were attempting to replicate one of the first bullet impacts observed on the Plymouth Fury 1 which is located at the lower right portion of the passenger side windshield just above the dash. This bullet impact has been confirmed to be originating from the inside out, meaning the origin of the bullet trajectory came from somewhere near the left or driver's side rear window.
Now notice, well, maybe I shouldn't beat this up, but notice you've got a SWAT team shooter shooting shooting the rifle mounted on a tripod. But we'll just put that out there to keep that in mind. And actually, we can go back. Let's see here.
Driver's side rear window.
Let me see if I can slow this down real quick. I just want to show. Take note of when he pulls the trigger. Take note of the shell casing ejecting. So there it is. Shell casing right here. So it ejected, came out that way. So that's just, just so, because I talked about the shell casings ejecting, and so you got to see it real time. So I'll go ahead and put it back on regular speed.
As you can see, we were able to closely replicate the bullet that struck the right side lower portion of the inside of the windshield just above the dash. This shot did not strike the ballistic dummy. Based on Buford Pusser's statement, this particular bullet impact would have originated at or near the bridge on New Hope Road, which was alleged to be the first ambush site, where Buford stated Pauline was struck first. However, even with the limitation of not knowing the actual anatomical position of Buford and Pauline seated in the vehicle, the ballistic dummy was not struck with shot one, which is somewhat inconsistent with Buford Pusser's statement. For visual descriptive purposes, to simulate the height differences between Buford and Pauline seated in the vehicle, based on Buford Pusser's statement, TBI Special Agent Tyler Yoder, who is 6 foot 5 inches tall, and TBI Special Agent Sarah Turner, who is 5 foot 4 inches tall, were used to illustrate to the viewer what Buford and Pauline would have looked like.
Now, take a look at that right there. Now, take note, again, we're talking about a 2012 Cadillac, not a 1967 Plymouth Fury. Plymouth Fury had bench seats, not these bucket seats. And this Cadillac has the big console in the middle. So you're constrained in your movement. You're restricted. The Plymouth Fury, tons of room, it's wide open. You can easily move around. Here, look at how they've got to contort themselves and to even get close, and they're not even close because look how much distance is between the guy playing Buford and the guy playing Pauline, and they're both kind of like doing this. Now, does anybody believe that that's anywhere close to being representative of what was going on in that 67 Plymouth Fury with Buford and Pauline? Just something to think about.
Seated in the vehicle at the time of the shooting. Shot 2 is an attempt to replicate Buford Pusser's version of events at the second alleged ambush site, located approximately 2 miles south of the bridge on New Hope Road near Davis Yancey or Acton Road. In shot 2, based on Buford Pusser's statement, Buford Pusser stated that as he was able to get away from the alleged shooter's vehicle, he drove approximately 2 miles south on New Hope Road from the bridge and stopped his vehicle near the intersection of Davis Yancey or Acton Road. Buford Pusser stated that he had opened his driver's door and had one leg out of the vehicle, and that he noticed Pauline was choking and making gurgling noises and bleeding from her hairline, nose, and her mouth. Buford Pusser stated that he had pulled Pauline towards him and he was looking into her face when the shooter's vehicle pulled up and began shooting into his vehicle again. Buford Pusser stated that he was looking at Pauline in the face when she was struck in the left side of her forehead for a second time. Buford Pusser stated that this occurred before he was shot In shot 2, we were able to closely replicate the injuries to Pauline's head based upon information from her autopsy. However, we were not able to replicate the injury to Buford's face during shot 2 because to replicate Pauline's head wounds, based on Buford Pusser's version of events, the ballistic gel dummy simulating Buford's position in the vehicle was struck in the right shoulder or right clavicle area and not in the left side of his face, jaw, or chin.
And just know, I'm going to show, after this video, I've got some photographs for us to look at, and you guys can make up your own mind what you think about this idea that the only way to get that shot was to shoot through Buford's shoulder or clavicle or whatever they're calling it. But just keep, just bear with me. I'm going to show you photographs to, put some more clarity on this.
The information revealed from shot 2 is also inconsistent with Buford Pusser's statement. Shot tests 3, 4, and 5 were tests to determine if it was possible for Pauline Pusser's brain matter, portions of her skull, and hair to be ejected from the vehicle as a result of her being shot in the head while inside the vehicle. Numerous witnesses at the second alleged...
Something interesting just happened there. Let's go back real quick on that shot.
From the vehicle as a result of her...
All right, let me slow this down for you. Let's slow this down and watch, pay close attention to up here where that casing, watch how that casing falls. Let's see.
From the vehicle as a result of her being...
Now, did y'all notice that casing fell almost straight down? Whereas the first one I showed you earlier, it kind of went out this way. This one went straight down. So we're talking about recovering these shell casings. Well, you just seen how the shooter pulled the trigger and the first one went out this way, this one went almost straight down. So it's not like when these shell casings come out, it's in a consistent manner. And if he was inside the car shooting, just from that little video there, you could see it's very possible that one of those casings went down. But I don't want to beat that up too much. Let me go ahead and put that back. All right.
While inside the vehicle. Numerous witnesses at the second alleged ambush site on New Hope Road, near the intersection of Davis Yancey or Acton Road, described seeing portions of Pauline Pusser's brain matter, skull, and hair in a ditch where investigators determined the location of the second shooting site. Shot tests 3 and 4 failed to demonstrate that a .30 caliber carbine fired from a car-length distance could have caused Pauline's brain matter and portions of her skull and hair to be expelled from inside the vehicle to the roadside ditch. The findings from shot 3 and 4 tests highlight inconsistencies in Buford Pusser's version of events. As a result of shot test 5, the most accurate replication of Pauline Pusser's brain matter, skull fragments, and hair being expelled.
Now look what they just did there. Now he's got the gun pressed basically right at the base of the skull. And we just had their ballistics expert, give you information. Well, they had those photographs in the report showing where they had fired that rifle into the wall at varying distances to show you the GSR patterns, and that close-up one had it that was like this, it was real big. You could see all the gunshot residue when it was up close. Now here, what they're showing you is that they got the rifle pressed up at the base of her skull, and we just got through talking about gunshot residue and all of that. So where is the evidence of that? Where is, that's fine, you want to replicate this, but where's the evidence of that? Where's the gunshot residue? And keep in mind when they were performing this reenactment, you had Mike Parsons there. The medical expert was Dr. Ravel. Okay. He's the guy that gave the opinion saying that Buford shot Pauline outside the vehicle and placed her inside the vehicle. Okay. He did that a year before this test. He wrote that opinion a year before this. So he's coming into this reenact. So keep that in mind. Your medical expert, the guy that's claiming that Buford shot Pauline outside the vehicle and then placed her inside the vehicle, he wrote his opinion a year before this. So what do you think? Do you think there's any bias involved with this guy? Can we trust him in this? And they're performing this shot, but their own medical expert, according to him, she was shot outside the vehicle and placed inside the vehicle. Now, granted, I don't believe, and don't misinterpret. I'm not saying I agree with that guy at all. I don't. I think that's ludicrous. But I'm just saying the TBI cannot seem to figure as much. They make a lot of let me get off of that for a second. Let me get up here. So the TBI goes to great lengths. Mike Elam and all these folks, they go to great lengths to trash what Buford's version of events and say how it's impossible and this, that, and the other, or it's inconsistent. This, that, but then they can't even figure out. So they can't decide. They can't make up they don't have a story. They don't have a story because their experts are always conflicting with each other. Their witnesses are always conflicting with each other. So they have absolutely no idea what happened, and yet their only mission here seems to be, well, let's just see if we can prove him wrong. We prove Buford wrong, that means he's guilty. He's got to be a murderer. It's, what are we doing here? What are we doing, and I don't know, you people in Tennessee, I don't live in Tennessee, but you folks that live there, your taxpayers there, your voters there, take note of this. This is what your tax dollars paid for this, okay? And you've got an attorney general, one of your attorney generals signed off on this. And I've already demonstrated how he didn't even read the report that he signed off on because he repeats the whole healing or healing nasal fracture nonsense. So, and he's got an election coming up, I don't know exactly when, a couple of years from now, I think. So, I don't know. You people in Tennessee might want to look around and see if you can get another candidate and vote these people out. Vote them out. The corruption that we see here, I mean, look, if they can do this to Buford Pusser, who was a beloved, if not a state hero, a national hero, and if they can do that to him, and this is only one report we get to look at. I mean, if they were this bad on this, what are they doing with everybody else? All these other investigations that they're involved in. I don't know. Ask yourself that. But I guess I'll get off the soapbox there. But I just, I thought it was worthwhile to bring up. But let's finish this video out, and then I'll finish up, and we'll get out of here.
From inside the vehicle into the roadside ditch occurred when a round was fired from the .30 caliber.
Now again, they just tested out the .357 shooting her at the base of their. All these shots are at the base of the skull, and I don't know. I don't think that's. I don't think we've got evidence to support that. But again, I might be wrong.
Carbine into the back of the ballistic gel dummy's head at close.
Oh yeah, look at that. Did you guys notice that? The cartridge casing ejected to the rear. So now I've shown you 3 different ways that the cartridge casings eject. We've had some go out this way. We had one go straight down. Now this one's going back towards the shooter. Back towards the shooter. So let me see if we can rewind that just a little bit here.
From inside the vehicle into the roadside ditch occurred when a round was fired from the .30 caliber carbine into the back of the ballistic gel dummy's head at close range.
Backwards.
This trajectory and point of impact are consistent with findings documented in Pauline's autopsy. In comparison, a close-range shot from the .357 revolver did not generate sufficient energy to expel similar biological material into the ditch. Medical and ballistic experts concluded that the Shot 5 test demonstrates Pauline was at least struck once in the back of the head from an intermediate or closer range shot.
Back of the head, but that's the base of the skull. That's not the back of the head. That's the base of the skull he's shooting into,
instead of that of a car length's distance. This indicates that Pauline was shot either inside the vehicle at that distance or outside the vehicle at the same range, both of which are inconsistent with the statement made by Buford Pusser regarding the events at the second.
I'd say the TBI is inconsistent with their own statements. At this point, they're nobody to talk about inconsistent statements because they are inconsistent with their own statements. So, let's wrap this up.
In Shot 6, investigators and experts were trying to determine if the injury to Buford Pusser's chin was caused by a .30 caliber carbine or a .357 revolver. In Buford Pusser's statement, he said that Pauline had already been shot twice in the head before he was struck in his left chin or jaw area, which knocked him down in the car seat until he came to a few minutes later and observed the shooter still pointing the .30 caliber carbine rifle towards him.
Well, I don't know. That looks not far off of what the injuries that we saw from Buford. I mean, I don't know. I think they just proved that, in my opinion, that right there just proved that it did happen the way Buford said it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but it seems pretty consistent.
When the rifle appeared to have jammed, and he made a lunge at the rifle and actually grabbed the rifle barrel before the shooter's vehicle sped off. As a note, Buford Pusser's jaw was not blown off as some believe. He actually sustained a large gaping flesh wound near his left chin or jaw area, and he received no bone structure damage to his.
Now, please tell me where Buford said that the shooter had the barrel of the rifle an inch from his face. I mean, we're making up all this seems to be about proving Buford's statements wrong. Somebody show me where he said that the shooter had the barrel an inch away. I don't know. And we just talked about the GSR and all that.
His jaw, other than losing a couple of his bottom teeth, which he pushed out himself while at Baptist Hospital in Memphis. During Shot Test 6, investigators and subject matter experts determined that the wound pattern most consistent with Buford Pusser's All
right, yeah, let's watch this. Now, keep in mind they're having to, because the way those gel dummies, the skull part, let me see if I can pull this up here. So the gel dummy, the way it works is it's like the teeth are clenched together. So you cannot shove that gun, the barrel of that gun, in the mouth with. You gotta break through the teeth to get it in there. It's a clenched jaw. So keep that in mind. I mean, you're telling me Buford was biting down, or he broke his teeth to get it in there? But be that as it may, let's go back. Now pay attention. I'm gonna rewind this. I'm going to rewind and pay attention to the nose area, the top of the gums here and the nose area. Watch what happens when he pulls that trigger.
Matter experts.
See how the nose and everything, like the nose almost bounced off his forehead, doing it that way.
Determined that the wound pattern most consistent with Buford Pusser's documented left jaw and or chin injury was produced using a .357 revolver. Based on the analysis of Dr. Mike Revel, TBI medical consultant, the shot most accurately reproducing Buford Pusser's injury resulted from positioning the barrel of the .357 either at the left corner of the ballistic dummy's mouth opening or on the left side inside of the mouth. In this position, the barrel was pressed into the soft tissue in the left inner cheek and directed away from the mandibular bony structure. Dr. Revel concludes that this mechanism of injury is consistent with, and in his opinion, actually caused the trauma sustained by Buford Pusser. The videos you have just watched show TBI agents and subject matter experts applying the scientific method in an effort to address questions.
Scientific method. Boy, if that's the scientific method, then man, I think we're in trouble.
Surrounding this case that have remained unresolved for 57 years.
The TBI continues to seek the truth in this case because Pauline Pusser's life mattered. It's the mission of TBI to ensure that guilt shall not escape, nor innocence suffer.
All right, well, enough of that. There you have it, folks. From your favorite and mine, TBI agent, special agent Mike Parson. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and show you some last little stuff here, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm already over an hour again. Okay, well, let's see. All right. Well, I had something set up for you. Okay, well, this new software, hold on a second, I'll get right back with you. All right, folks, sorry about that technical difficulty, but I was able to bring this up. Actually, let me see if I can move this, zoom that out a little bit. All right, so take a look here at the photograph. I took a screenshot of the Cadillac that they were using, and right off the bat, notice this is a four-door vehicle, and look at the orientation of the seat bottom and the seat back. Okay, the seat back is hidden, it's concealed behind this door, the back door, the rear door. Okay, so take note of that. And then let me see if we can show you something. Okay, now there's the Plymouth Fury. And also, while we're at it, let me take note. Hold on, let me see if I can move this around. Okay, all right, now let's take a look. But remember, the ballistics expert, he said that the bullets went through this area. Dr. Warren said this area. Now I'm sure he meant this area. Okay, I'm sure he meant this area. But the way he wrote it up, if somebody was new to the case, didn't know any better, he's saying this area. Now, there's no holes there. We can see it in the photographs, and we've got the notes from Warren Jones from that day, his crime scene notes. So, but that's not really why I was showing this, but I'm just showing this picture here to illustrate that this is a two-door vehicle. And then let's move on. And then let me take a look at this. Okay, so this is the bench seat that I was talking about. Now, notice there's no center console. Look at all this room inside the vehicle, and take note that the seat back is not concealed behind the second door, or the rear, that back area, the area behind that passenger door. And here we go. We got the door open. You can clearly see the seat back and the seat bottom. It's clearly exposed. All this area is just open and exposed. And you can see again, here's from a different angle, where you can see that seat back is exposed. And then let's see if we got a different one. Well, no, we'll go back. But so all of that, and then keep in mind, let's go back to the original photograph. See the seat back here is concealed by that rear door. And they actually had to push the dummy out. So really, instead of him firing right here, he's off position. He's not lined up correctly, according to Buford's statement. He needs to be back here. He needs to be right over here, shooting in through this way. See this here, this area right here is where the shot, you could easily have taken a shot through here to get to Pauline without going through here. The only reason he's having to shoot through Buford's shoulder right there is because they chose the wrong, well, I was about to drop an F-bomb. I'll keep it family friendly here, folks, but they chose the wrong type of vehicle. Now, I get it. Maybe we know you can't have that original vehicle, but they could have went out and got something similar. They could have got another 67 Plymouth Fury, or they could have got some vehicle that had a bench seat and two doors where the area was not constrained like this. See, this shooter, he's having to take that shot because they chose the wrong vehicle. That's why the shot's going through Buford's shoulder. It ain't got nothing to do with Buford's statement. See, the shot, he should be lined up here, shooting in through here like the evidence supports. See, this is what's wrong when you have people that come into an investigation, with a preconceived notion. And let me show you one more thing, actually, while I'm at it. Okay, yeah, this is the Dr. Revelle that he's talking about. This is the medical expert. This is the guy he's the one that says that, according to him, his interpretation of the evidence, that she was shot outside the vehicle, placed inside the vehicle. Well, he wrote this report July 31st, 2023. So this was a year that, remember, the reenactment didn't take place until a year later. Almost a year. It was in 2024. So he had already formed his opinion. And so you're telling me that their experts were not biased? So, but that's as far as I'm gonna go with it today, folks. I guess I thought today's video would be shorter, but I try to be thorough. I try to be as accurate as I can. I try to show you the real documents, the real evidence, the real photos, and go from it to, take that approach to it. I don't want to just sit here, I could just sit here and not show you the videos and the documents, and I could just give you my opinion. But then, of course, people would say, oh, well, he's just making it up. He's not supporting it with documents, But I think I showed today that the problems, just even more problems with the TBI report. So I know in the past, there's my detractors that come in the comments section. Well, you're just nitpicking. You're just showing in things that don't even matter. Hearsay, blah 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 blah. No, I'm talking today. I've been talking last few videos about the forensic evidence. So are you telling me that this is insignificant? And I don't see it as nitpicking. I'm just showing you the flaws in it. And for anybody that's thinking I'm nitpicking, well, look, I'm just a guy on YouTube. I'm just giving my opinion. Think about this. If Buford was alive and he did go to trial for this murder, you know, all these experts, all these hearsay witnesses, what I'm doing is child's play compared to what would be happening to them in a courtroom. They would be getting taken apart. You know, they would be embarrassed in front of everybody. Okay, so, you know, what I'm doing is tame, but, you know, honestly, I don't really care what anybody's opinion is of it, as far as what I'm saying, because I'm showing you, I'm using the TBI report, I'm using the evidence. So everybody's free to have their own opinion and discuss it, and you can agree with me, disagree, whatever, but that's just the way it is. But that's going to do it for today's video, folks. I appreciate you sticking with me and everything. Trying to get better at this, and like I said, I hope you guys hope you have some good weather. Hope you have something fun planned for the weekend, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care, everybody.